Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fearlessly Authentic. I am your host, Jody Harrison Bauer, and I'm so happy to have you join me today and my wonderful guest. If you are new to the show, this is the show where we educate you, empower you with that information, entertain you a bit, and inspire you to live your most fearlessly authentic life. Because, in my opinion, we're only here for a short time. So, what are we doing if we're not living our most fearlessly authentic lives? And today, it is just such a pleasure to have my guest, Kim Shapira, who is going to educate and empower us even more, because one of the things that I love to talk about is food and the importance of food and why we need to find that beautiful balance and that great relationship with food. And Kim really breaks it down for us. Kim Shapira, MSRD, is a celebrity dietitian, nutritional therapist, and author with a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology from Tulane University and a master's degree in human metabolism and clinical nutrition from Boston University. Kim has spent over 25 years helping people lose weight and keep it off, with a giant emphasis on keeping it off, people, both in her private Los Angeles practice, in hospitals, sports clinics, addiction centers, and universities. We're also going to be touching on Kim's book, which I absolutely love, called This Is What You're Really Hungry For, right here. This book will help educate you even more. This will be the last diet book you will ever need without ever asking you to go on a diet. I am so excited to have Kim on the show today. I always learn so much. Take out your notepads, take out your pens. Here we go. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the show, Kim. It's so nice to have you here today.
I'm so happy to be here.
We have so much to talk about. We've tried these lives on Instagram, and then one of us always has to run, and we always say we're going to talk about one thing, and then we get off to another subject. So I thought, let's do this so everybody can hear our conversation.
I'm so excited about this. Yay. Okay, hopefully I'll just try and stay like in my lane and we'll just talk about one thing right now.
Okay, so the first thing I want to start with is protein. This is a very, very big topic. We
Yes.
have discussed it before. And as I've gotten older, so my thought process behind getting enough protein in our bodies to maintain muscle mass and to build muscle and to live longer came from the mentality, back 35 years ago, 40 years ago, when I started lifting weights and I understood the importance of protein. And that's how I was going to be strong like Popeye, right? Because spinach has protein in it.
I love Popeye.
Yeah, I do too. So I think I had a crush on him when I was a little girl. But anyway,
That's funny. Well, wait, hold on. Spinach does have protein. It
I
has,
know.
yeah, okay.
No, I
People
know it
don't know
does. And
that.
so does broccoli.
All vegetables, actually, all starches, all milks, they have protein.
But not cucumbers.
Of course they do. Just a small amount,
Just a
but
tiny bit.
they have the same amount of spinach per half cup.
I
Yes.
did not. I always thought of, okay, let's stick to protein for a second.
We are.
Okay.
We're talking
But that
about
is, it's still protein. So my thought process was that, especially when I started competing in my 40s. So in my 30s, lifting weights, eating enough protein, then compete. And for everybody listening, when you're competing, that's at a totally different level. And that's why so many women who do compete, after they stop, they end up gaining a lot of weight, have body dysmorphia, are confused about how they should eat. I saw it in so many of the 20-year-olds that were competing when I was competing in my 40s. I think I had more self-awareness, obviously more life experiences. I didn't have body dysmorphia. I understood what I needed. So then I went into the real world in my late 50s, which is when I stopped competing, and postmenopausal, for the first time in my life, and I've never said this out loud, I was really confused about how the heck I should eat, because I wasn't in competition mode. I was now a postmenopausal woman. What I did realize that I was, like many women who are postmenopausal, is like, well, my clothes still fit. My husband still loves me. I'm good. I look better than most women, so I'm good to go. And I'm in the fitness industry. Like, I'm training women. My
Yeah.
energy is great. but it was confusing. As a postmenopausal woman who knew what to do, I still found myself gaining 5 to 7 pounds, then trying to fast. And I found myself, oh my God, Jody, you're one of those women that come to you. And then finally, I got it together. But it took about 3 years of trying to figure it out. You talk about protein, and I think you and I are on the same page now. You know, I was competing. There was a reason for why I was eating that
Yeah.
and counting my macronutrients. And I loved one of the posts that you put up in the last week or 10 days about understanding the importance of protein and how much you really need it. So I would love for you to break down and expand upon that post about protein and how much we need, and just really simplifying it so people understand that it does not need to be complicated.
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest problems that I have is the word high protein, when I really think it's moderation. And I think we need to have a balanced diet because we need all the vitamins and minerals from all the food. So protein is a nutrient inside food, and it's in, a variety of foods. Like we just said, it's in your starches and your grains, your beans, legumes, your seeds and nuts. It's in your vegetables, and it's in your milk products. It's in your animal meat products. And we can get different amino acids, different levels of amino acids in each one of these different food groups. And I think that's really where there's a lot of confusion, because we need all the amino acids every single day, but we only get all the amino acids coming from animal. Otherwise, we don't get all the essential, and we need to mix some of the foods to make sure we're getting all of them. And these amino acids really are our building blocks in our body. So what happens is they're important for our healthy blood, which means that the blood that is carrying our oxygen to the cells and the blood that is carrying all the nutrients are easily able to transport to where they need to go. So we need the amino acids and the protein for this. We also need it to make sure that we are growing. And that includes, like, if we're young and like a baby to a toddler to an adolescent to a teenager to pregnancy to recovering from surgery, whenever we're growing, we're going to need to make sure that protein is covered. And then what you did say is that you were building muscle. Now, one thing that I have a really huge problem with is people weigh themselves on a generic scale, and they're looking at their weight, and they're not looking at their body fat or their muscle mass. So when we are trying to determine how much protein we need, we also need to determine like what our lifestyle is, what our body fat is, and what our muscle mass is. We need muscle. Like, nobody's arguing that we need muscle. We cannot perform normal duties like walking from the car or putting groceries away or carrying our grandchildren or walking a straight line. Our bones are going to break. Like, we need muscle. There's this major confusion with this high. And like, when we live in such a fast-paced world where everybody's in diet culture and looking for the next and best, greatest thing, I get a little worried with that word high protein. And so if we were to look at what the research says, when we are growing and we're young and growing into adulthood, or when we're pregnant, let's just stick with growing, like a kid to an adult, they need more protein than somebody who is just living. But then if you're recovering from surgery, you're pregnant, you need more protein. Now, if we think about a pregnant woman, they think high protein and they go overboard and they gain too much weight. But we're really talking about like really 3 ounces more. We're not talking 6, 10 ounces more. And so if we are thinking about this, we need 0.8 grams per kilogram just to maintain our weight. But if we are trying to grow or build, then it's somewhere in the 1.1 to the 1.4 grams. Now, I'm so sorry, my dog wants to come in, so I'm going to have to interrupt you myself.
Go get your dog, and I will fill up the space here as your dog comes in. I shut the door. Yes, when somebody is growing, as you were saying, from from the time they're born until they become adults and figure out what their activity levels are, what their goals are. And I always use that as goals. I always use you as the example as the more gentler version of me, from the very first time we spoke. And I am becoming more gentler when it comes to food as I've aged, because I realize that with everything we do in life, it changes as we age. That
Yes.
doesn't mean that we do less or more. It just shifts based on our needs and our goals and our activity levels. But if we're getting down to brass, whatever it's called, down to basics, um, you don't have to do too much or too little. It's just finding that beautiful balance of life, like finding a beautiful balance of feminine and masculine energy. It's finding that beautiful balance that works for you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that with every client that you've seen, just like every client I've seen, every single person is different. There is no one size that fits all, but generally speaking, neither one of us want people spending a lot of time counting their macronutrients
Not at all.
unless they are a professional athlete or they're competing. Like if you're an
Exactly.
Olympian, of course they're going to be watching all the food you're eating.
Yeah. I mean, it becomes problematic for me because a lot of people don't like to move their bodies and a lot of people don't move their bodies. So now you're talking about eating protein and not moving your body. And there is a really big problem
Yeah.
for me here. And so if you have high body fat and you eat when you're not hungry, it doesn't matter if you're eating a strawberry, a piece of steak, or ice cream, your body is taking those calories and converting it to fat. And
Mhm.
so we really have to look at what your metabolism's doing. And so this is why I get like so, I guess, worked up in my, low intensity self is that people are wanting to eat high protein and not do the work.
Right. Okay. So let's just talk about let's define what high protein is. Let's take a 140-pound woman, right?
Okay.
Would you say
Okay.
that's an average, or let's just say
Sure.
150? Let's say a 150-pound
Okay.
woman.
Okay. So I've got my
She,
calculator.
okay, you've got your calculator. Let's talk about a sedentary woman. This is a woman that sits at a desk every day. The most activity she gets is getting up in the morning, getting dressed, going to work, sitting in a chair all day, coming home, maybe making dinner, and then sitting in front of the TV.
She needs
Okay.
54 grams.
Explain that to everybody, how you came up with that.
Okay, so I took her weight and divided it into kilograms, giving her, she's 68 kilograms, and I multiplied it times 0.8.
Can you do not do the kilogram thing? Because I never know how to convert it.
It's, you, how do you do it?
I always just, my way of doing it is through, if you weigh 150 pounds and you are a sedentary person, you should be taking in about 50% of
Same
that.
thing. Same. We got
Okay.
the same number.
So
Actually,
point five.
mine's lower. Mine's a little lower. So you would be giving her, what is that, 65 grams?
0.50
I need help.
times 150. 75 grams of protein
75. That's
per
what I
day.
thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What did you come up with?
54.5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And so like I have a client who is sedentary, and right before I started talking to you, she was telling me about her dinner last night, and she went to PF Chang's and she got I can't say the word, Mongolian beef.
Mhm.
And she said she ordered a salad too. She did not eat the salad. I said, next time, maybe see if you can add some broccoli or peppers or onions to the meal. She's like, all I did was eat the beef because I'm trying to do high protein.
Mm.
I have a huge problem with this.
I agree. I would be the same way, Kim. Plus everything that it's soaked in,
Yeah,
right? It's
but
very
that's
high.
beside the point. That's a
Beside the
whole other
point. Right.
conversation.
She's got to eat all the, so when we look at a plate, there should be the protein, there should be a starch, there should be a
Vegetable.
vegetable, and if you want, there could be a fruit.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
right, there could be a fruit with every meal. People think fruit is like the most terrible thing to eat. It is not. I eat fruit if I feel like eating fruit 4 times a day, I will eat fruit 4 times a day, especially
Yeah.
in the summertime here on the East Coast.
Yeah,
It's
it's so
fun to get
good.
all the good fruit. So how did you speak to her about that?
Yeah, well, I just talked about helping her kind of like broaden her view and what her plate should look like what we just talked about
Right.
and discussed, making sure that if she doesn't have to order the salad because she thinks she should order the salad. I would
Mm.
rather her really puff up her meal by adding vegetables to that meal.
Okay. So in adding vegetables, one thing it does is let's just take broccoli. It has protein in it, a little bit.
It has protein,
It has calcium in it.
it has calcium, it has vitamin C.
Right. Leafy green. So it has everything, vitamin C, vitamin A, I think also,
It
but
does.
I'm not sure.
No, it
But
does.
the thing is about leafy greens that you'll hear both Kim and I'm sure we agree on this, is that not only is it good for you because it has all of those vitamins in it, it also will fill you up. So
It's
when you
also the
go
fiber
ahead.
content and the water
Right,
content. And
right.
what's more than that, it actually pulls out cholesterol that is in your bloodstream. And what's more than that, it pulls out dirty estrogen, lowering your risk of almost every hormonal cancer. So bulking
Kim,
up,
I did not know that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
never knew that.
yeah.
How come I didn't know that?
Now you do. Now you do.
It's, that's incredible. Wow.
Yeah, that's leafy greens are great. Broccoli is exceptional, by the way.
It is. So when I was competing, I did not eat a lot of broccoli 2 weeks prior to a show because it does expand in your stomach. So obviously for a fitness
Can I
competitor,
explain that?
yes, go ahead.
Okay. So broccoli, the expansion is actually the nutrient carbohydrate. And
Right.
so like I always think about that word carbohydrate. People don't hear that it hydrates. And so since our systems are generally 60 to 80% water, ideally, if you're getting on stage and you want to show off your muscles, you don't want to be hydrated because you
Correct.
want your skin to be thin, you want your muscles to be bulging. And so that's why you can afford to lose a lot of water and cut carbs in like a competition
In a
situation.
competition, right,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
But in real life, we don't need to do that.
No, but what happens when somebody doesn't eat carbs and then they do eat carbs, and carbs are in fruits, vegetables, starches, and milks, when somebody starts adding them back, they look like they're gained weight or they feel like they gained weight or the scale saying they gained weight. But all they
Right.
did was actually put water back into their 100 trillion cells.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And the other thing, this drives me crazy, is that when people tell me that they don't eat any carbs, and I'm like, you
Mhm.
don't eat any fruits or vegetables? Because they think of carbohydrates as pasta, breads, things like that.
Yeah.
And can you break that down for everybody listening?
I mean, it's exactly what you just said. That's it. People are afraid of
Great.
of the food. And like, I mean, we're getting off track from protein, but
No, but I wanted
just
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Um, so when you think about, let's take carbo loading, for instance. So marathon runners carbo load, and that is because they want to have that energy and that water for the day that they're actually running, right? So let's say we don't eat carbohydrates, and then on Wednesday we decide we're going to have pasta, and we're going to add some spinach and some broccoli and some asparagus and maybe some tomatoes and some marinara sauce that is salty. And we
Mhm.
eat this, it's delicious, we feel great. And the next day we get on the scale, which is always a terrible idea. But you
Terrible.
get on the scale and you look like you gained 2 pounds.
Mm.
So think about that dish that you had. All of those vegetables are like 80% water, and that pasta is 60% water. You absorbed all the water in that meal. And, if you know that if you're going to drink 16 ounces of water, you're going to put a pound on the scale. You didn't really put the pound on, but you just drank a pound of water. And so now you're having all of this water, and then it's going to take you exactly 3 days for your body to recognize, oh, I don't actually need this water, and it diffuses right out. But it takes
Right.
3 days,
Days. Right.
3 full days. So it's not
Yes.
real weight gain.
No, no. And I used to get complaints from women all the time,
Yeah.
especially with going back to the whole broccoli story or the spinach. Well, I got on the scale and I gained 3 pounds.
Yeah.
I would always tell them 3 to 5 days, it won't happen.
Yeah.
It'll go back, which is why I don't like women using a scale very often. It's a great starting point. It's a great way to check in, maybe once a week, every 2 weeks, once a month. If you got a coach, he or she will let you know when you should check in, because we don't want you getting obsessed with that number because it doesn't tell you everything. And just
No,
using the weight, because if you do put on muscle, you're
which
going to
weighs
gain
more.
weight.
Yeah. But I love it. I do love a smart scale. And I love a scale that tells us our hydration status and our body fat percentage, our subcutaneous fat and our visceral fat. I think this information is important.
Mhm.
But the truth, the real truth is our human body weighs more on Monday. And people tend to get on the scale on Monday.
They
And we
do.
should not be doing that.
Right.
Only day that we're accurate in our weight is on a Thursday.
Explain that.
Yeah. We weigh more on Monday, and it takes 3 days for our body to process whatever we ate over the weekend, giving us our lowest weights on Thursday. So if you were to weigh yourself Thursday to Thursday, you're going to get an accurate reading. But if you weigh yourself on Monday to Tuesday, it's inaccurate. Saturday to Monday, it's inaccurate. Monday to Thursday, it's inaccurate. The only accurate is Thursday to Thursday.
Is that because people eat more over the weekend? Is that why you're
And
saying
they
that?
tend to eat saltier foods and maybe have alcohol
Mm,
over the weekend, but it's scientifically proven that we weigh more on Monday than any other day of the week.
I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you for that.
Yeah. And also, I will say a woman's body is only her normal weight one Thursday out of the entire month. And it's only the week after her cycle. And it's
Right.
only if her cycle was 48 hours before that Thursday. It's very confusing.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I remember when I got my period, I remember thinking I would never weigh myself when I had my period. And I
Right.
remember waiting a couple of days after I was completely finished with my cycle. I don't know why I knew that back then, because it seems
Yeah.
like,
You
well,
just
it's
knew.
been
Yeah.
13, 14, it's been 13, 14 years. So,
Yeah.
but I just remember that, like, why would you ever do that to yourself? Because then what happens is the whole mentality of the scale, unless you have one of those smart scales, is that you feel bad about yourself. And then you feel like all the work that you've been doing is for naught. And then you think, well, I'm just not going to try anymore, which is discouraging to us as people who see that you can do the work.
You can do the work.
You
You
can
can do
do
the
the
work.
work. And
Yeah.
you and I both talk about doing the work, and that it's not so hard to do the work if you've got somebody there who can guide you intelligently with the right information. I think, listening to somebody like Kim, who is a registered dietitian, here is her book right here. Here's her book.
So cute.
Which is a year old. This is what you're really hungry for. A year old. And 6 simple rules to transform your relationship with food to become your healthiest self. It really simplifies everything. It's not confusing. It is a book that you should buy and share with your friends and buy for your friends, because it's not intimidating. You don't throw all these really big words at us, and you just break it down.
It should be
It's
simple.
simple, but like anything, you've got to do the work. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to give yourself some compassion if you fall off the horse, but
Yeah.
know that you have a plan and you could get back to it. And I think so many people feel like, oh, forget it. This is too hard.
Yeah. I think Esther Perel really says it best when she says you can have 8 relationships in a lifetime. And then she says sometimes with the same person. And then I
Mm.
like to add sometimes with ourselves. And so if we can just kind of accept that we've had history or a relationship where it really didn't work out for us, but we're in a new one now, I get to be in a new one and I get to do it exactly how I want to, then I think there's like this whole new world that can open up, right? When we
Right.
don't like think about ourselves in the past, but we stay in the moment we're in.
Mhm. That's
Yeah.
that's a great point. So many of us do get stuck in the past.
Yeah.
And the relationship with food, I would like to talk about that next. Is now that we've covered, well, one more thing before protein. So if somebody is sedentary, somebody is active, somebody is very active, somebody is an athlete, for a 150-pound woman,
Yeah.
what do you suggest for them? Because so many people ask, well, I don't know how much protein I should eat.
Yeah. So I would say anywhere between 54 and about 125 grams if they're counting, 130 grams if they're counting, which I
Right.
don't really recommend that they count.
So how
So
do they figure it out?
yeah. So I mean, it's way more complicated. And I don't know, it's not that it's complicated. I think if you remember that protein is in your vegetables, it's in your starches, and it's in your milks. So that means it's in your yogurts, it's in your cereals, it's in your pastas, it's in your grains, it's in your seeds. Then if you're intentional about getting it, I think in your lunch and your dinner, and even maybe a snack, sometimes you're hitting
Hmm.
it almost every single time.
Very true.
But doing the work means moving your body as well,
Hmm.
right? Like if you're not doing that piece, I think then that's where you need to start, right?
And right. And
If
I
you're moving
think
your body and not eating protein, this is also detrimental.
right, right. We need to do both. And they don't need to be extreme.
They don't
And
need to
if
be extreme.
they don't need to be extreme, if you're watching the Olympics, that's extreme athleticism. That's extreme.
Yeah, that's
That's extreme.
yeah.
We're for the average person we're talking to right now, and none of you are average, but if you are average in your activity level, average in what your level of exercise is that you just want to feel good, you want to feel healthy. That's what we mean by average, that you're not an extreme athlete and you're not sedentary. And I don't like the obsession over the protein either, because again, it brings too much attention to becoming fixated on what am I going to eat for my next meal, which is how I spent 15 years of my life as a fitness competitor.
Mhm.
So again, that's why a lot of people in the fitness industry have issues with food when they're done with it, because it is hard to go into the real world of eating and not being so fixated on everything, which is, I have a lot of compassion for those girls because I know that it is very hard. um the other thing that I wanted to talk about is, you mentioned electrolytes in one of your posts
Yeah.
lately, like I think a few days ago. And I love that you talked about it, because I think it is absolutely friggin' ridiculous how people think they need to drink water with electrolytes in it. So
I
can you please break that down?
yeah. So electrolytes, gosh, they're little like they're giving us messages throughout all of our bloodstream and our water, and they're making sure that everything is being sent in the right direction on a cellular level. We generally have everything we need. Yes.
Question. When you say, for the person listening, the average person
Yeah.
listening right now, cellular level, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So we have bloodstream, and we have intracellular water, and we have extracellular water. So intracellular is inside the cell, extracellular is outside. And we're using the water and the blood to transport everything and all the messages, all the hormones, all the electrolytes, everything is being transported and going to wherever it needs to go, right? So generally, if we eat a balanced diet, we're getting all of the electrolytes we need from the food we're eating, especially from our fruits and our vegetables. And as long as we're eating carbohydrates, then we're getting water. So what's really interesting about carbohydrate is that it's a combination of sugar, which is fructose or glucose or galactose or maltose, depending on what type of food it is. So it could be yogurt, it could be fruit, right? And so let's take fruit, for instance. We know that that sugar is fructose, and it's connected and combined with water. So fructose and water make up carbohydrate. And then we can't actually absorb the water if it's not actually connected to a sugar. And that's really important to know. So when somebody eats a high protein diet, we don't actually absorb water from anything in the protein because there's no sugar involved. And so since we're 60 to 80% water, we can afford to look or lose a lot of this water. And so eating a high protein diet makes us look thinner or lighter on the scale because we dehydrated. But then the second we add in an apple, we suddenly look like an apple. And that's because we need the sugar to absorb the water. which is why Gatorade is a rehydrating drink because it's a sugar, water, salt combination that helps get into the cells. And almost every rehydrating drink is reformulated to copy Gatorade, to be honest.
Right. And having that hydration, which is why it's important to have a balanced diet, also has to do with your gut health.
It does.
And
Oh,
having
all health.
all health,
If
all
you're
health.
1% dehydrated, you don't feel good.
No, you'll be constipated also.
You'll be foggy brained. You'll feel like you have the flu. Your muscles won't be firing on all cylinders. You could have muscle spasms. Literally, you will not feel good. All
You
of
will
you, right? Nothing
right.
will feel good.
I was always a terrible water drinker. I've gotten better, but whenever, and I don't get headaches often, but in the few times that I will get a headache, I know it's because I'm dehydrated. So
Yeah,
that is why we do not want to eliminate carbohydrates from our diet.
exactly. Exactly. We want to have a balanced diet. And so electrolytes are great for athletes and anyone who is performing any sort of athletic, activity for 2 hours or longer in the heat.
Right. So if you're playing tennis in the middle of August,
Yes, or football.
football, or yeah, right. Any
Anything, going for
sport
a
could
hike, going to the beach. If you're
construction
out,
workers.
construction workers, if you're outside in the heat for 2 hours or longer, absolutely you should like add electrolytes to your water. Absolutely.
So there's a lot, right? So that market of I've had stuff sent to me about with that hydrate, that the
Yes.
little packets of
Yes.
hydrate. What do you think of that? I don't use any of that stuff.
I don't either. I wouldn't use them either because they also include sugar alcohols
Right.
or other ingredients that I wouldn't normally seek out to begin with that are going to cause bloating, gas, diarrhea, or constipation. So you can make your own electrolyte, honestly, by putting a pinch of salt and
Of
some
salt.
fruit slices into your water and call it a day.
That's
You can
it,
you
guys.
can
That's
eat a
all
piece
you
of
need. That's all you need is a pinch of salt and
that's it.
some slices of orange or whatever you want to put in there. That's
That's it.
all you need. You don't
That's it.
need to buy all that stuff. And by the way, when I did try it because it was sent to me for free, I'm like, okay, let me try. Everybody's talking about
Yeah.
all this stuff.
Yeah.
I had the worst gas ever. And it
Totally.
was so, yeah, it didn't work for me. I'm like, I'm never going to do this. This is
I know.
just,
I
I
tried
don't
it
need it.
too.
Did you?
Yeah, I tried yeah, I tried a different brand, but I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I mean, my 17-year-old, when she was playing soccer competitively, for sure, I put
For
it in
sure.
her water.
Right.
For sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've talked about sugar a lot, and I think everybody by now knows that sugar is like poison. Sugar can be addictive. Sugar's bad. I don't usually like to say the word good or bad. Like when I was
Yeah.
disciplining my children, I would say your behavior isn't very good about this, but I don't like to label anything good or bad. However, sugar is not going to make us feel better. And why is it that sugar is so bad for us, Kim?
Well, first of all, if people were to slow down time and actually be very present when they put the sugar into their mouth, whatever it is that they're eating, they would actually recognize that our minds find it offensive. It's too strong of a taste, which is really, really
Mm,
interesting, but we move so fast that we miss it. And we're also associating with something pleasurable. So it's getting stored in our, addiction brain center. And then what happens is when we use it up, our body has withdrawals. And so it becomes it's like nobody wakes up this morning and says, I want to be addicted to heroin, but then suddenly it's all they can think about. And so
right.
sugar is extremely addicting. And you can't tell the difference between like loving it and being seduced by it. It's really
Mm,
interesting. But with that being said, I think it can be part of a normal diet. In fact, I think it has to be because in 2024, there are birthdays and there are birthday cakes, and there's going to be time when you're going to want to go to ice cream in Italy, or you're going to be on Balboa Island and want a frozen banana. Like there
right.
is a time and a place for these
Yes.
things. But the problem is if we're having it every single day, and we think we love it. That's the problem.
Right. I love the way you said that. That was so perfectly said. That again, we're not looking to eliminate things totally from what you love to eat, as long as it's not an everyday thing.
Right.
Like indulge when you're in Italy and want to have a gelato. It's it's fine, but not on an everyday. There are no nutrients in it for you. I think I told you this when I was back in the day in my 30s, and I had hired a trainer, and he said to me, Jody, I want you to think like this. Every single time you eat something, now this is crazy, okay? But
I'm
it was
preparing
nine,
myself. Go.
yeah, it was 1993. It was after I had my second daughter, and I said, I want to get into the best shape of my life. And he said, Jody, and he was Mr. Connecticut, I want you to think this. Every time you eat something, is it going to help you build or maintain muscle mass? If the answer is no, I want you to put it down. Now, I know that was extreme, but there is
Actually, I
so,
like it. I kind of like
right.
it.
So there
Yeah.
is something to be said about that. And he also said that if you want to ever go back for seconds, take a walk around your house in the backyard for 15 minutes. If you actually feel that you are still hungry,
Yeah.
go ahead and have more. But if you're not hungry, don't eat more,
Yeah. I mean, where
which
do you
is
think
very
my
much what you say.
Yeah, I mean, my rule was as much as my rule is my rule, like eat when you're hungry, start with half and wait 15 minutes. It was formed out of science,
Right.
right? Right. It is scientifically fact that leptin takes 15 minutes to tell our brain we are satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing with all these like GLP-1s and these semaglutides is that they're impacting our leptin. So it's hitting us faster. So we're not feeling hunger as long. But we all have the natural ability to recognize when leptin is kicking in, and it takes 15 full minutes from the time we first take a bite to know if we need more.
I did not expect to bring this up, and I'm so glad that we are talking about it, because that is part of it. Sounds hard. Wait 15 minutes. It is hard because, right? So our knee-jerk reaction is, God, that tasted so good. I'm not even, you haven't even swallowed that last bit that you had on your fork, and you're going back up for more. So
You haven't even finished chewing it before
right,
you're back
that's what
for
I
more.
mean. You haven't even finished chewing it, and you're like, I'll have more. And I remember even like going out with friends, and their drink is like a quarter of done, and the waiter comes by, would you like another? And they always look at it and go, yeah, I'll have another. I'm like,
Yeah,
how do you know? How do you know? How do
right.
you
That's
know?
the thing.
But
That's the
you and
thing.
I are weird like that. We think like that, but we want to help other people think like that
Yeah.
too. We
Yeah.
really
And I'm
do.
not perfect as far as like
Me
chewing my
neither.
food as well as I can. But like, the truth is like we're supposed to smell our food.
Mm,
When we smell it, it releases saliva. That is the first signal that our body is ready to eat. If we don't actually get that release of saliva, we should not be eating. Our body is not ready. We're going to end up with bloating and gas and stomach aches. So just smell your food. Think about lemons and like think about how that releases all your salivary amylase, just ready to break down the lemon you're about to eat, right? And then we're supposed to chew our food. Our teeth are the first form of mechanical breakdown we get. We're supposed to flatten our food, make it liquid. We're supposed to
mm,
swallow a liquid bolus that's going to drop down into our stomach and then be squished by, the way that our stomach moves. And that's going
mm,
to further break it down. Without the chewing, we can't get this proper breakdown and we're not flattening the surface area so we can pull the nutrients out of the food, right? We're
mm.
missing out on the nutrients inside the protein we're eating or the fruit we're eating because we're not chewing it. It's
That
but
is,
but the
no.
reward of eating is in the
Mm,
anticipation. You're
mm,
right. I get to put that in my mouth. And
right.
if we stay in that reward cycle, we're missing out. We're not being mindful. We should be chewing our food 15 to 44 times per bite, depending on what it is. Obviously, a banana is like 3 bites, a piece of steak is like 44 bites. Nobody is doing that. Nobody's
My husband is.
okay.
He is the slowest eater in the world. You put food in front of me, it's done in 45 seconds.
Yeah,
It used to be that way, not anymore. I'm slower because of he is. But yes,
good.
I've never met anybody who chews their food as long as he does.
So funny. I love it. But imagine if we slow down, we put our fork down and we chewed our food longer and we started with half. So instead of eating our food in 2 minutes, maybe it's going to take 6 or 7 minutes. We still have to wait 15 minutes from that first bite. But now that 15 minutes is only 6 or 7 minutes away as opposed to 12 or 13 minutes away. And our mind just wants us to be having fun. So it's like, just eat the food.
Right. So it's so important to be mindful, which is why we suggest to not eat while you're in front of the television,
Yeah.
not eat while you're sitting in front of your computer, to really be mindful of it. And for somebody who did do that, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
If you are, I like to, personally, I enjoy my meal. I don't even want to talk on the phone when I'm eating a meal. I want to, like, I hear sometimes I'll talk to people and they're eating their meal, somebody I know really well. And I'm like, how can you do that? Like, I really need to focus on the food I'm eating. Otherwise, I would eat too much.
I mean, nobody should be on the phone eating. I'm sorry
I,
for your friend who is.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
What about drinking water when you are sitting down to a meal? I'm sorry, you were going to make a point and I interrupted you.
No, I think it's easy to be distracted, and I think it's a training not to be distracted. It's hard to know, like, is your friend engaged in the conversation with you or needing the food to make the conversation more pleasurable? Like, it's very confusing. And I think we need to separate the two.
Well, let me tell you what I do. I usually say, hey, listen, you're eating. So I'll let you finish eating because I know I don't like to be distracted when I eat because I don't want to be on the phone with somebody who's eating, or I don't want to be talking to somebody who's got the TV blasting loud. You know what? Or
Right.
telling their kids what to do or washing dishes. I'm like, you know what? Call me
Yeah.
when you can sit down and have a conversation with me.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Water. What were you asking?
I was asking about, we know we need to drink about 8 glasses of 8 ounces of
Minimum. Yeah.
water,
Yeah.
minimum water, which, and I usually say to make it super simple, half of your body water in ounces,
I mean,
which
whatever's going to work.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it's somewhere around there. So what about drinking water while you're having your meal? How do you feel about that?
I mean, if you look at what happens scientifically,
Hmm.
when we drink too much water when we eat, it kind of transports the food we're eating straight out of us. It's called dumping syndrome. So it's never a great idea. And especially if somebody has like GERD or heartburn, we don't really want to do that. So you want to sip water. You can drink your water, I would say 30 minutes before you eat. You can sip your water while you're eating if you need to. And then you want to wait 15 to 20 minutes until your food is in your stomach and ready to like be worked before you start drinking water. Truly.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear that? You don't want to drink a lot of water while you're eating your meal. It's good. It's a good idea to drink water 30 minutes before your meal. And
Yeah.
not necessarily because you're fuller before you're eating meal, because we want you to eat your food. But if you're going to drink your water, try to just sip during the meal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I would say, like, if you can't tell if you're hungry, that's a good time to have some water. You should,
explain that.
because some people say, like, I don't know when I'm hungry. Because, I talk a lot about being hungry when you eat.
Yes,
And a
yes.
lot of people say, I don't know when I'm hungry or I don't get hungry. And then, of course, the question is, well, then why are you eating? Right? Like, we clearly know when we have to pee, but we don't know how we know. We don't even know where our bladders are necessarily, but we know when we have to pee and we know when we have to pee right now. And so hunger is very much the same. I mean, I was swimming yesterday and I was just like thinking about like how I hadn't had lunch yet and was still swimming. And I checked in with my stomach and I wasn't hungry. And then all of a sudden, hunger came. And there it was. And I was ready for lunch. Right. And like, no fear of like, I wasn't going to eat or there wasn't going to be lunch. I knew I would be hungry. I just wasn't yet. And I don't know where it comes from. And I can tell you that it's just right here. It's not scary and painful, but that's hunger.
Right. We have still so much to talk
What?
about as because I did want to get your views on Ozempic, semaglutides, but will you come back so we can
I
talk
can't
about
wait.
this?
Yes. Yeah. Can we
Okay.
spend all day together?
Yes, I need to either come out to you. Well, you know what it's like on the East Coast. It's much prettier out where you live in
Who
California.
knows?
But Kim Shapira, where can everybody find you?
They can find me on my Instagram at Kim Shapira Method, all social media at Kim Shapira Method, everywhere.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And again, get her book. This is really, I always mess, this is what you're really hungry for. It's right here. And I will talk about this some more. I will leave the show in the show notes and so on. Kim, thank you so much for being on the show. Come back again.
Yes,
I
so
love
fun.
talking to you. And for everybody, thank you for joining us today. And I will see you next week.